Kinugawa can take advantage of.
We'll have to see if that's game plan they'll be going for as it's starting to get into the first game here, Swiss round 4 between Yuma and Mattie. Right away, Yuma, that's going to be both restricted on the field. That's Zamazenta and that Calyrex Shadow Rider. Whimsicott and Qianpao instead for Morgan.
Yeah, it's a really offensive lead here from Kinugawa, coming out with both restrictors here and in a nice position. Going to have the be a little bit threatened from the Qianpao into the Calyrex. Of course, with that sash there, do have a bit of a protection, but there's Zamazenta putting a lot of pressure onto that Qianpao, and you're not really offering up the offensive nature that you would really want in this situation. Yes, you can maybe call a Terastallization on the Calyrex, go for a Moonblast there if you expect the Dark type, but I don't know. We're going to see the Protect come out from the Qianpao to start us off.
Make sure the Qianpao can make its way through the turn, and Whimsicott, when Mattie has a Pokemon that has the ability to set the speed for the Pokemon he has in the back, this just makes so much sense. Astral Barrage from the Calyrex Shadow Rider. Of course, Qianpao won't take any damage. The Whimsicott, not so much. Brought down just to 19 HP. Zamazenta, is this going to be the double up? No, instead into the Qianpao. So Whimsicott can stick around. Whether that's going to be too great or not, we'll have to see. But this is where you have the opportunity to see it. And it also, okay, interesting. We get to see that Mattie has only brought one of the restricted Pokemon.
Yeah, really interesting there. No Calyrex in the back for Mattie, so that's a big decision there. It puts a bit more reliance on that Qianpao to be able to deal with that Calyrex. Because if you don't, then once your Zamazenta comes onto the field, it is going to have a way harder time being able to deal with the Calyrex Shadow Rider then. The Zamazenta here, still not really threatened from either the Qianpao or this Whimsicott, so pretty safe to just sit and just fire off attacks into the Qianpao. The double up here is pretty threatening, even though the Ice Spinner coming out into that Calyrex.
That is a lot of damage from that Ice Spinner. And Whimsicott now the double up with the Moonblast. Not enough for the KO. Calyrex Shadow Rider is gonna stick around. Astral Barrage now in return. Whimsicott on such low HP, no chance. And Qianpao, that's now the Focus Sash gone. Zamazenta still has this opportunity to attack as well. And we saw that it was the Body Press last time to try and get rid of the Qianpao. And you have to imagine it's gonna be a little bit more of the same this go around. But look at that. We got to see a Calyrex Shadow Rider that was brought down so low. It's going to be taken down, but still, that's going to be Yuma with a double KO on the turn, and Mattie just the one.
Yeah, it gets the Grimnir boost, but then the Life Orb kicks in and the recall there, just enough to take it down. The fact that it was able to survive the double up, the Ice Spinner, and the Moonblast was impressive to start with. To be able to get that Astral Barrage off and then clear the field on Mattie's side, the Zamazenta sitting in a very strong position, and no Terastallization is being committed yet. That might have been able to bring in their own Zamazenta and the Raging Bolt, but you've got to remember that the Tailwind still active on Mattie's side. It's not present on Kinugawa's.
Yuma now, with that one Calyrex being knocked out, has this opportunity to bring this Rillaboom onto the field. So yes, there is still going to be a couple more turns of this Tailwind to play around with, but you do have Fake Out now to at least slow things down for this one a turn to slowly but surely make your way through.
Yeah, and you probably want to make best use of it as possible here to kind of get through these Tailwind turns and then kind of even the playing field up, because right now both the Raging Bolt and the Zamazenta are going to be outspeeding everything on the Kinugawa side and really threatening those double ups into specific slots. An easy one is the Rillaboom. Of course, you have that Fake Out, so that's not going to be an option this turn. But once this turn's passed, you're still going to be in a really not so great situation until that Tailwind does dissipate. The one thing that you would say as well that Mattie has as an advantage is they can Terastallize out of the weakness from the Body Press from the opposing Zamazenta, where Kinugawa can't really get out of that weakness so much.
We'll go in on into this turn, called out that Fake Out pressure, and it's going to be a Raging Bolt that protects Zamazenta that tried to get a move off, but is going to be stopped in its tracks. The Body Press from Yuma, though, into the Raging Bolt. So not really any damage done on this turn. It's just Mattie that's now has one less turn of that Tailwind to work with.
Yeah, and then now I think it's about making the most of it, right? I think you can go for the double up into the Rillaboom. It hasn't got Protect, so it's an easy slot to go for here. But we are finally seeing those Terastallization options locked in, and which one it will be, we'll find out very soon. It will be the Fighting Terastallization on Kinugawa. Going to go all out with a Body Press in retaliation to Mattie's side of the field. Which target will he go after, though?
Yeah, when you see this Terastallization, you know it's all-out offense, but it's, of course, Mattie that gets to fire off these double attacks first, and you called out, Rillaboom cannot protect, so it's going to be an easy double up, an easy KO. Now it's going to be the Terastallized Zamazenta. See how much damage it can do with this body press. Terastallization we don't get to see too often, and so much into the Raging Bolt. Not quite enough for the KO, but still significant. And now that was the final turn of the Tailwind. So now how are these restricteds going to match up into each other?
Yeah, well, the body press doing a lot of damage. I kind of wanted to see it into the Zamazenta to see what the damage option would be like there, but both trainers relying on their Raging Bolt, combined by that Zamazenta as their last two Pokemon. So now in a bit more of a healthier position, Kinugawa there with the fresh Raging Bolt to come onto the field now. You know, the Raging Bolt on Mattie's side has taken a lot of damage so far, but Mattie does still have the option to Terastallize one of their Pokemon, now knowing where Kinugawa has kind of put their Terastallization, so could maybe utilize the Dragon typing on the Zamazenta. Probably not the best idea, to be honest, because you've got the Dragon Pulse threat from the Raging Bolt on the opposite side of the field, but is your own Raging Bolt too low health to really commit that Terastallization to?
Well, no Terastallization is going to be spent at least right here, right now. It's going to be protect one apiece. Yuma going to preserve that Zamazenta. Actually, both Pokemon. So Yuma, that double protect. Mattie just onto this Raging Bolt. So a turn where it's just a little bit of information, and all these Pokemon that can't protect now next time around unless you want to take a 1-in-3 roll.
Yeah, that's it. And I think now you've got to really kind of say, what's the most important Pokemon that you want to get rid of if you're Mattie or if you're Kinugawa? I think if you can get rid of the opposing Zamazenta, then maybe the Raging Bolt becomes a little bit easier to deal with. But if you get the option wrong, I mean, the double protect makes it a little bit easier to go after one of them. Yeah, we are going to lock in now. Mattie's decision to Terastallize and which Pokemon it will be is that Raging Bolt, Electric Terra typing.
It might not have the most HP in the world, but trying to take advantage of the most as it can to get a boost to a potential Thunderclap. Try and make sure as much damage is done as possible. This is going to make sure that you're doing so much into this Zamazenta, and hopefully if Mattie gets this outspeed, which he does, but that's just not going to be nearly enough. Body press now in retaliation with the own Terastallization boost from Yuma. We already saw how much into the Raging Bolt. Easy KO. Now Mattie just down to one final Pokemon. And Yuma, I mean, you're still looking at a Raging Bolt on his end that has just been untouched, and skill can output so much pressure. Thunderbolt into the Zamazenta. That's going to bring it down to about half.
Yeah, now you've got this really awkward position where you've got the Grassy Terrain kind of healing off those little bits of damage onto Kinugawa's Zamazenta, and maybe one more tick if we see the Protect there could put it out of range from a Body Press. So that's why we're seeing maybe the Body Press going after the Raging Bolt, but we see the double up here, and it is going to lock it up. Kinugawa going to be able to take this first game really convincing fashion, not really in any threat throughout that whole game, and the Fine Terastallization on the Zamazenta could have been the difference, the game changer there.
Yeah, seeing the amount of damage that Yuma was doing with his own Zamazenta in comparison to Mattie, especially when you do have that sort of near end game with each player having their Zamazenta and the Raging Bolt, you saw how much that stacked up. And really big difference in the Terastallization, as you called out, wasn't really a safe position for Mattie to go for Terastallization on that Zamazenta, because, I mean, there's a Raging Bolt that could just click Dragon Pulse and you're not living in a great world. So I'm really intrigued with how this next game can go, especially too, again, we saw that battle of the Zamazentas, but it was a Calyrex Shadow Rider from Yuma that actually made a lot of impact early game, and Mattie that opted to only bring one restricted.
Yeah, and I think that it was a really smart lead from Kinugawa where they led so effectively there, where Mattie maybe led with two Pokemon that really didn't have the offensive prowess to be able to deal with the Zamazenta effectively, and you can see they're losing the Chen Power so easily, and the Whimsicott, yes, you got the Tailwind up, but you didn't really get much in return because you may have got rid of the Calyrex, but probably the most important thing to get rid of in that situation would have been the Zamazenta, and you saw the damage that Kinugawa was able to do with the Body Press onto the Raging Bolt after Terastallizing, whereas we had that similar trade-off where Mattie went for the Body Press into Kinugawa's Raging Bolt, and it was just not even comparable, the damage between the two.
I mean, I was going to say there's the opportunity to switch things up for Mattie, especially if you didn't think the Smeargle was going to make an appearance, but it's Mattie that's going to keep with the same lead, but a drastic change from Yuma into this next game.
Yeah, really drastic lead, yeah, because you're going with matching the Tailwind almost, and not with that restricted pair. The Smeargle coming out obviously has to be a little bit wary of that taunt, but the one thing that you're going to have to say is, does the Whimsicott then match the Tailwind? You're going to see a Protect from the Chen Power, though. Doesn't want to get spoiled this turn if Tailwind comes out.
Yep, just make sure that you are safe as well. Make sure that you're not going to be taking damage from a fake out to remove your focus sash. Tailwind from the Whimsicott and eyeing up the Tornadoes on the opposing end of the field. This can either be a match or an opportunity to do some damage. Bleak Wind Storm, of course, nothing into this Qian Pao. Whimsicott, this is going to be doing a lot though. Whimsicott does hold on though. Again, 7 HP. Moody Boost, special defense is going to be raising, attack gone.
Yeah, boosted by that Sky Plate now. I think it was the beak before, which was the boosting item, but she swapping up there. I really like this though, because now you've kind of delayed a turn where you can go for your Tailwind with your own Tornadoes, and you'll have that extra additional turn. Once Mattie's runs out, you'll still have yours active. So really smart play, and you can set it here, and you're still going to be putting on a lot of pressure with this Smeargle here after that fake out that turn. You've got the active Spore. Are you going to be in a position where you can maybe utilize that pressure and maybe switch something and expecting a taunt from the Qian Pao? It almost feels like it's forced to go for that this next turn.
Yeah, when you're looking at these two Pokemon that Yuma have, and especially the Smeargle, that's a Pokemon you can't really let get out of control. Whimsicott, since it survived, you do have to hard swap into a different Pokemon to try to take advantage of the situation, and it's going to be Raging Bolt. Also notably, Mattie leaving Zamazenta at home, having the Calyrex Shadow Rider instead. But for right here, right now, the Raging Bolt is something that can be impacting this damage. Now, Smeargle, follow me. Make sure that the Tornadus is going to stay safe on this turn, but it's going to be the last time it gets to use its status move, Taunt, to completely shut it down. Again, Tornadus is not active, so you know it's another attack. Bleak Wind Storm, so much damage into that Qian Pao.
Yeah, you can see the power that's got with the boost from the Sky Plate, doing huge damage to the Qian Pao and respectable damage to that Raging Bolt as well. The Smeargle now going to be locked out of doing anything because of that taunt, so he's going to be forced to switch out. You know, just a bit of a free slot here. So Mattie has got that to take advantage of now with the ice and the electric that are going to threaten that Tornadus. But for being so threatened, it's kind of sitting on the field now where you could go for the Tailwind, expecting maybe a Thunderclap to come out, and then, yeah, I'll just take the Ice Spinner that comes out from the Qian Pao because that'd be fine. I've got my Tailwind set. Yours is going to end the turn following this one. So I'll be in a really good spot even if I lose the Tornadus this time around.
So, of course, Smeargle, as you call it, can't really do anything, having been taunted. So Yuma forced to be switching this Pokemon out, and now it's going to be none other than the Zamazenta to hit the field. Dauntless Shield, of course, get a little bit of a defense boost. Now, protect just from this Tornadus, really not wanting to go for this Tailwind quite yet, and of course not wanting to take any sort of damage on the turn. Qian Pao targeting into that slot, gonna be null and void, and for the Raging Bolt as well, that one will be into the Zamazenta, so not a free switch, but a considerable amount of damage.
Yeah, and you know, I love that. I love this, where you're just not giving up the Tornadus for free here. You don't want to. You want to reposition. You want to get things in place before you really let this Pokemon have to go down if you need to. But the switch into the Zamazenta here is great because you're starting to put a lot of pressure, and that Raging Bolt going to be very close to being knocked out from the damage that we saw the terrestrialized body press do in the game one. So that Raging Bolt can't just rely on the fact that it's got a lot of health and it's remaining. It has to be very careful going into this next turn, because if a Tailwind comes out from the Tornadus, body press follow up into that slot, you could be left in a really awkward position where one of the more powerful Pokemon that you're going to lean into to swing this match for you could be lost quite quickly.
Another point for how this Zamazenta and this Terastallization type is just so impactful in this match. So we're going to see it clicked right here, right now, into the fighting type. The damage that we saw in game number 1 from this Terastallization was big, and this Raging Bolt on the other end cannot feel quite safe. This is finally the opportunity. Speed on Yuma's side. Tailwind has been clicked. Now body press from the Zamazenta with that Terastallization boost into the Raging Bolt.
Oh,
not enough quite
so
for the
close.
KO. Hold on barely. Thunderbolt in retaliation though, but without the Terastallization being clicked, Mattie, that is not enough for the KO there.
Yeah, and the switch into the Whimsicott is a really nice one because now you've got the option to potentially go for the Encore into the Tornadus to lock it into that Tailwind. So really well timed there from Mattie to potentially shut that threat down, which would be nice. The Raging Bolt are in such an awkward position. It can go for a Thunderclap into the Zamazenta, but is it going to be enough? Probably not from the damage that we've seen from that Thunderbolt. So Zamazenta still in that nice position, and now with that Tailwind active, really going to be starting to put on the pressure, especially after that Terastallization into the fighting type.
And with how offensive this Tornadus has been as well, the last thing you want to do is put all the eggs in the basket of the Thunderclap. It's Zamazenta, and all of a sudden it's not ready in an attack, and you just get KO'd by a Bleak Wind. But now Whimsicott, since it has been out back on the field, body press, that's the tailwind, body press, but of course, Raging Bolt protects. Now, going to be a bleak windstorm. No connection onto the Raging Bolt. Will it connect into the Whimsicott, though? It will, and Whimsicott already on his sliver. Now, Mattie can be bringing into a Pokemon, a quite speedy one, since he did bring that Calyrex Shadow Rider to try and take advantage of the situation.
Yeah, one of the things that you would say is that the fighting Terrestrialization doesn't really help you out too much against the Calyrex, because normally you can get rid of that psychic weakness that you've got there, but with the fighting type, you can't really do that. So it's an easy target now with that psychic into the Zamazenta to get rid of that Pokemon. So whether or not we see Kinugawa maybe switch out the Zamazenta, keep it for later, and just keep applying the pressure with the Tornadus, it's going to be able to outspeed the Raging Ball, and a Bleak Windstorm into that slot will be enough, even though it's, you know, resisted. It's so low health at this point, and any actual damage into the Calyrex is going to be very useful as well.
Ooh, eyeing this up though. Instead of just going for an offensive turn to try and do enough damage with something like the Psychic, get to see a little bit of a different move choice as well as Terrestrialization from Mattie. So the Dark type Terrestrialization, this of course does not fare well up against something like that Body Press. Going from immunity to now just taking a lot of damage. But when you're eyeing up, I mean, just any sort of shutdown could be big. But of course, when you're talking about shutdowns, Thunderclap, nothing into the Tornadus. Substitute from Calyrex is going to be the answer into making sure you're not taking a bunch of damage from the Body Press, and probably going to be relatively free on this turn, but no, Heavy Slam instead into the Calyrex. Substitute taking the damage, and it will be enough to break it.
Yeah, you were kind of saying, is there going to be a Body Press into that slot? But Mattie kind of protecting bases there with that substitute, which is really nice there. Putting himself into that position again where he can threaten that Zamazenta this next turn, and the Tornadus has burnt that Protect here, so it is going to have to do something, either switch to get around the Thunderclap threat, or just go for that Bleak Wind that we were talking about before to get that nice damage onto Raging Ball, pick up the knockout, and now the Calyrex, which is already taking a little bit of chip, getting that substitute up and getting around that turn where they've taken the Heavy Slam rather than the Body Press. With the Body Press now, an easy option for the Zamazenta to go after that Calyrex. If it can land into that slot, then it's going to be able to pick up a knockout, super effective damage into that one Ghost type.
Yeah, having the Dark Terrestrialization so you can't get taunted is so nice, but the fact that you've opened yourself up to the Body Press damage is not in. Taunt instead into the Raging Bolt. So now Protect's no longer on the table, and it also means, again, an attack wasn't ready, so Thunderclap doesn't do anything. Astral Barrage, though, with the absence of Wide Guard on the opposing end, that will be enough for the Zamazenta and a lot of damage onto that Tornadus.
Yeah, that's a really nice play here, and with that Life Orb boost as well, you get some really good damage onto the Tornadus. You're going to activate the Grimnir, and you're still in a pretty healthy position, just taking a little bit of recoil-free trouble there, and you've still got the Raging Ball hanging on by a thread on your side of the field. I've got that active Thunderclap. It's kind of checking the Tornadus, so if the Tornadus decides to go for a Bleak Wind, then you've got it kind of checked there, but one Pokemon that can come and start disrupting, kind of supporting the Tornadus here, is that Smeargle. Got the Fake Out now, can go for it into either target it wants to prevent an attack coming out, and then the Tornadus can apply a little bit more pressure with a Bleak Wind or a Tailwind of its own to kind of match what's on Mattie's side.
And it's nice, at least for the Calyrex, since you can just protect past that, since, of course, there's immunity, but no attempt at a Protect. Instead is just going to be taking that Fake Out. Nothing into the Raging Bolt, though, so Raging Bolt will be able to go for an attack. That's going to be the Tornadus to make sure that the speed is going to be matched on this turn, but Thunderbolt into this Smeargle is going to bring it all the way down into the Focus Sash.
Yeah, now the question is, what does Mattie go for, right? The Tailwind's set up now, so the stage is set for Kinugawa for the next few turns. The Smeargle only gets that special attack moody boost, special defense drop, that's fine. Not really going to affect the outcome here. But now you've got Wide Guard on the Smeargle. Do you lock in with an Astral Barrage? It's not going to be super effective into the Smeargle, but if you kind of lock into the Psychic and go after the Tornadus here, then you kind of open yourself up to being subjected to a Spore potentially from the Smeargle, and that's the worrying part about it. You want to try and get rid of the Smeargle before it can get that Spore off and start disrupting your side of the field. Kinugawa playing this absolutely so well to make it so difficult for Mattie to get that momentum swing that he's trying so desperately to kind of get here.
And the fact that the Tornadus was able to just reset that speed is huge, but Thunderclap is finally going to find its mark as Tornadus goes down. It already made so much impact, though, but on this turn, it will be that Spore since Yuma has the speed. might as well take advantage of it, and Calyrex Shadow Rider is going to be forced to sleep onto this turn.
Yeah, and it all comes down to the last Pokemon in the back for Kinugawa. What have they got? But that Spore is also crucial. Taunt wearing off for the Raging Bolt, so worth noting there, and a defense Moody Boost and a speed drop for the Smeagol. So that might be quite influential going into this next turn. Even though the Tailwind setup, will that affect the interactions with maybe the Raging Bolt this next turn?
We'll have to see if this one comes to fruition, but hitting the field is a very speedy Pokemon. 2 more turns of the Tailwind as well. Calyrex for Mattie, of course, has taken that one mandatory turn of sleep on that previous turn, but whether it wakes up, that's going to be a different story.
Yeah, and you kind of need to wake up as soon as possible. The Terastallization's got to be spent on Kinugawa's side, I believe, but the Astral Barrage is going to be super effective if it does land into that opposing Calyrex, and more than enough to be able to take it down. And just to kind of try and get through, allow your Calyrex to wake up, we are seeing that protect.
Yeah, his nasty claw on the opposing end. You're trying to take advantage of the situation. Now there's a special attack boost for Yuma. We were talking about the difference in play styles. Yuma talked about making maybe a big play into this, and that could be the damage difference maker going on forward. Spore into the protect from the Raging Bolt. But yeah, that could be everything. Now on this next turn, that is going to be the interesting one, because again, that's Calyrex now 2 turns of sleep.
Yeah, and I think the thing is, you can protect your own Calyrex with your Smeagol as long as it's sticking around on the field. It's down to that 1 HP. So if you go for the Wide Guard here, you don't really need to worry about the threat of Astral Barrage. And now you've taken that perfect opportunity you had to get the Nasty Plot +2 special attack. You'll get in a position where, even though it's resisted, the Astral Barrage will probably be able to be enough to pick up the knockout. And we are seeing the wake up finally on Mattie's side, and that protect.
That is definitely an impactful wake-up protect, so you make sure that you're not going to be taking the damage on this turn. It's Miracle to make sure the Calyrex Shadow Rider's not going to be taking any damage either. Astral Barrage, of course, nothing into the Calyrex. And Raging Bolt, a Pokemon that's already taking a lot in this battle. This is a +2 Astral Barrage and a Raging Bolt on just a couple of HP. There is no chance. It's going to be Mattie down to final 2 Pokemon, and it's going to be a Qianpao hitting the field. And curious where this could be the big difference maker, especially eyeing up that, yeah, there's a Tailwind gone. You have access to Sucker Punch, and I mean, if you can get rid of the Smeargle,
I mean, the game opens up for sure. I think the big key factor there was the Tailwind ending. So the speed interaction now between the 2 Calyrex is going to be really crucial here. Who's going to go first? But Mattie definitely got the advantage. I think you need to get rid of the Smeagol, though, because as long as that Wide Guard's in effect, you can't really utilize your Astral Barrage, where Kinugawa can utilize theirs. They're now +3 special attacks. So regardless of the resistances you've got with the Qianpao and the Calyrex, you are going to be subjected to that move hitting for super effective damage. The problem is, what do you do? Do you go for Wide Guard, or do you go for Follow Me to try and get around the Sucker Punch? Because the Sucker Punch is putting a lot of pressure on itself from the Qianpao, where it can just go for it, and you know, one of those will be enough, and you kind of cover the bases with just a Psychic into the Smeagol there. So it's a really difficult option. Do you cover the Astral Barrage, or do you cover that Sucker Punch?
And Sucker Punch off the table with Mattie opting Protect instead. And none of the above play, as it's going to be a Psychic going into that Smeargle. Didn't try to ready up the others and set maybe a Spore, but now Smeargle is gone, and the Calyrex Shadow Rider for Yuma is going to be susceptible to getting hit onto this next turn. It is, of course, a very scary Calyrex Shadow Rider with that Astral Barrage at this +3. But again, when we're looking at the Qianpao and that Calyrex Shadow Rider on the opposing end, it looks like Mattie might be able to have these pieces.
Yeah, I think he's got enough there to be able to pick up the knockout there. Even resist it's going to be enough, and it's going to get another boost to +4 right now. It's in a pretty healthy position as well, but the question is, can you get around this Sucker Punch threat on the Qianpao? You've got enough to be able to take that, because I really don't feel like you have now. You've lost that line of support. Looks like Mattie might be able to tie this one up with the last remaining Pokemon that they were able to keep in the back, but no Sucker Punch landing.
Oh, we're going to be playing one of these end games. It's not going to happen quite yet, because it's going to be a nasty plot from this Calyrex Shadow Rider. This is where end games can get interesting, because of course, when you're looking at how many times you can use the Sucker Punch, well, it is limited, right? So it's going to be a little bit of the mind games of, well, making sure you can get the Sucker Punch when you try, and second time's not it.
Yeah, and this is it. I think you can't really deviate from going for the Sucker Punch. I think you've got, we can see that Mattie's got 8 of them, right? 6 of them are remaining. So I think you can't really deviate at this early stage. I think you've got to really go between that and Protect is maybe the way to go about it. But the one time that you don't lock into it, it's risky, because, right, then your opponent might attack that turn, and then you lose the game, right? But we are seeing the protect sucker punch once again from Mattie. So it is all a mind game. Who is going to give in first? Who's going to go for the move and lose out?
It's going to be the attempt at the protect, so if it was an Ice Spinner, it could have been some damage. And of course, Mattie can always go for the Ice Spinner or go for the taunt. But again, as you called it, if you all of a sudden go for anything other than this sucker punch, and it's anything, well, it's a scary situation. So Mattie, this is going to be the deviation now. Protect. Yuma, was this going to be the turn, the attack? This is always going to be so intense, but no, protect yet again. So is Yuma always just going to protect? So can Mattie take advantage of this?
Yeah, I mean, maybe, right? You can go for the Ice Spinner, but are you getting lured into like a false sense of security where you're like, okay, he keeps going for the protect, he keeps going for the nasty plot. Am I going to take this opportunity to go for the Ice Spinner? But there's always that little doubt in the back of your mind that says, maybe this is the turn that they click the Astral Barrage button, and now they're +6. They're like, we haven't got that much health on our Chet Powers, so it feels like anything is going to be able to take us down. It's a real hard situation here to do, and I think Kinugawa obviously keeping count of the sucker punches that have been utilized, and there's only a matter of time before we run out of those, and maybe then you have to rely on the Ice Spinner to get those attacks off.
2 more left, and this is where Mattie is going to deviate. Taunt into the Calyrex Shadow Rider, but Yuma, you can see the pop-off on this turn. So Calyrex Shadow Rider, it is the Astral Barrage! Jianbao, the one turn that doesn't click Sucker Punch, is going to be taken down, and it's going to be Yuma. Kinugawa 2-0 in the set after the craziest endgame.
That was incredible. I can't believe it. Reading Mattie like a book to take this set in such convincing fashion. And you've got to say, that was just incredible to see. Every turn, the threat of the sucker punch, them counting them down. I'm going for the protective, going for the nasty plot. Am I keeping my opponent guessing? Yes, I am. But this turn, I know that you're going to deviate, and I'm going to lock in with that Astral Barrage. It could have gone the other way completely, and we could have went to a game 3, but no, Kinugawa showing why